According to documents that have been released by Football Leaks and that have been reported on by the European investigative collaborations, which include news outlets such as Der Spiegel and Reuters, some of Europe's top teams considered abandoning their domestic competitions back in 2016, but decided against it. However, the threat of a European Super League is still very real. What's up? I'm Adrian and welcome to another Rabona TV explainer video. As you know, in this one, we'll be looking at how leaks have shed light upon the alleged desire to form a Super League consisting of the most affluent clubs across Europe. I should preface this entire video with the word allegedly. Given the nature of the reporting, basing things off of leaked documents, we can't say with 100% certainty that these documents are 100% valid. But what I can say is that when a respected news agency such as Reuters is involved in disseminating the documents in what has been called the largest football data leak ever, coupled with Der Spiegel's strong track record of breaking stories containing leaked documents that often end up being true, perhaps reserve your judgment for now until more details come to light. But don't dismiss anything just yet. Keep an open mind. These leaked documents were looked at for 8 months by roughly 80 different journalists, all working together to expose the corrupt core of football. As part of a massive series of stories based around these leaks that touch upon corruption regarding financial fair play for Manchester City and PSG, doping, and the European Super League. Also, I'll provide a link to the original Der Spiegel article in the description in case you want to take it a step further yourself. All credit to Der Spiegel, and Football Leaks, of course. So, we'll start back in 2016 in Munich. Der Spiegel claims that they have access to leaked emails between Bayern's Michael Gerlinger, who is the head of FC Bayern's legal department, and a law firm called Cleary Gottlieb. Cleary Gottlieb is an international firm with over 1,200 attorneys associated with it, offices around the world, etc. They're a big deal. Now, in the alleged email, Der Spiegel claims that Gerlinger asked his contact at Cleary Gottlieb a few questions, including the legality surrounding if Bayern would be legally able to leave the German football competition. Now, Bayern Munich may be the focus of the Der Spiegel story, given that they are a German newspaper, but the article goes on to point out that an American sports executive by the name of Charlie Stilitano actually proposed the idea of a Super League to 2 Real Madrid representatives in December of 2015. Stilitano is known for organizing high-profile football friendlies in the United States. He's also a radio personality, was the chairman of the New York, New Jersey Metro Stars from the old days of the MLS, etc. He has a long list on his CV. Included in his email to the Real Madrid executives was the proposal for and the basic structure of the initial Super League, as well as the teams that Stilitano thought would make the most sense to include. According to Der Spiegel's leaks, quote, the 17 teams with the strongest TV presences from England, Spain, Italy, Germany, and France would compete permanently in a European league. The 18th participant would be a team from Portugal, Russia, the Netherlands, or Turkey. The league would run for 34 weeks, with matches on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. There would be a knockout round at the end of the season. End quote. Now, let's jump ahead about a month to January 30th, 2016, where Der Spiegel claims that emails prove that 7 clubs, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Juventus, Barcelona, Manchester United, Arsenal, and AC Milan all came together to create a crack team to figure out how the clubs could leave their respective national competitions in order to create the proposed Super League. Now, Stilitano also met with top Premier League clubs shortly after he proposed the Super League idea to Real Madrid executives. In fact, there's even photo evidence of this, as the meeting made headlines back in March of 2016. Take a look at the back page of this issue of The Sun. I know, it's The Sun, but they actually got something right this time. You can see Ed Woodward of United, Bruce Buck from Chelsea, Ivan Gazidis from Arsenal, Ferran Soriano from City, and Ian Ayre from Liverpool. It was after this meeting that Stilitano then continued on his European tour to meet with Bayern Munich's Michael Gerlinger. And speaking of which, it's all coming full circle now. Following his Super League meeting with Stilitano, Gerlinger told Cleary Gottlieb in regards to breaking from the Bundesliga and UEFA, quote, as you can see, we have basically 3 different breakaway options, end quote. And then according to Der Spiegel, he asked the following, quote, would the clubs still be required to allow their players to play for the national teams after leaving UEFA? Could the associations or leagues penalize players for participating in the Super League? Could players have their contracts annulled if their clubs switch to a private Super League? Well, 2 months later, they received their reply from their lawyers, with the lawyers claiming that all of the clubs involved would be legally safeguarded from punishment by UEFA's laws. Kind of funny in a way, considering they were protected by the laws of the association they were, well, seeking to screw over, basically. However, the lawyers did say that the players, in fact, when they signed a contract with the team, they also signed a contract with the Bundesliga, so if they were to leave the Bundesliga, then said players could cancel their contracts and sign with another Bundesliga team if they so choose to do so. So, from there, more meetings would be held by the 7 teams I mentioned earlier, who will henceforth be referred to as the 7 clubs: Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Juventus, Barcelona, Manchester United, Arsenal, and AC Milan. In which during these meetings, they would discuss if they needed to leave their domestic competitions completely in favor of a Super League, or if they would simply remove themselves from the UEFA competitions in order to create a sort of replacement league for the Champions League. Now, Der Spiegel claims that meetings between Big 7 executives and UEFA's representatives led to the following demands being made by the Big 7. Quote, "The league would only include 24 teams in the future. Clubs that had been extremely successful in the past should be rewarded with additional spots in the tournament. Some European competition matches should be held on the weekends, and more matches must be scheduled for time slots convenient for broadcast in more TV markets worldwide. And the clubs had to be given the power to organize and control the competition together with UEFA." End quote. Now, what I personally get from reading this is that the 7 clubs wanted to ensure that all of the power and money would fall into their hands, while UEFA would be in charge of the competition basically in name alone. Furthermore, it seems like the kind of demands I make in FIFA 19 when another team wants one of my top talents and I feel like being a prick. I have no interest in negotiating really, so I ask for an exorbitant fee, knowing that they will say no, and if they don't, I get a massive payout. To me, that's sort of what the 7 were doing with these demands. However, the thing is, UEFA is sort of at the mercy of the 7 clubs, given that a UEFA competition without them would make for a pretty lame competition indeed, at least commercially. And at this point, the 7 clubs were saying that they had the backing of other big clubs as well. Perhaps a competition without the most financially strong teams would be more balanced though? I don't know. Well, the big clubs in UEFA were able to come to an agreement in the end, or at least they were able to get UEFA to agree to completely reform European football starting in 2021, in which the revenue structure will be completely revamped so that regardless of the final placement within the competition, the bigger clubs will always make more money. Der Spiegel claims that the new setup will ensure that there is a, quote, tradition clause, which allots greater revenues to those clubs that have found success in the last 10 years in the Champions League and Europa League, will generate over 30 million euros for FC Bayern starting with the 2018-19 Champions League season in particular, money that is guaranteed even before the club had even played its first game. That last bit was in regards to Bayern Munich in particular, because again, it's Der Spiegel, a German newspaper, they're going to talk about Bayern the most. But yeah, that means that qualifying for the Champions League will be even more lucrative money-wise and will continue to grow the financial disparity at a domestic level between the big clubs and the smaller clubs. These guys that are competing in Europe all the time will get even more money. Now I know what you're saying, hey, so what happened with the Super League? Well, for now, given that UEFA is seemingly giving in to the demands of the big clubs of Europe, there won't be any changes to the Champions League as of this year or the next. But that doesn't mean that it's completely off the table, as this document was leaked by Football Leaks on November 2nd, 2018. So, what are we looking at? This is a document that was taken from an email to Florentino Perez, Real Madrid's president, as you already know, on October 22nd, which was part of a 13-page document titled as a, quote, binding term sheet. Now, we'll explain what that page refers to in a minute, but it's important to note what was discussed in the 13-page document. Yes, you guessed it, the formation of the European Super League. The document claims that the Champions League would be finished as of 2021. It would no longer exist. Now, the 11 teams from this document, referred to as the founders, would be the permanent residents of the Super League and would be immune to relegation for the first 20 years of the competition. There are 5 other teams listed that would be invited to the Super League in order to round it out to 16 teams. On top of this, it was noted that the teams would meet to sign the documents in November of 2018, thus setting up a new organization in Spain that would oversee the competition. In essence, it would operate in the same way that UEFA presides over the Champions League in both organization and the execution of the tournament. In fact, speaking of the Champions League, it looks as if the Super League would be a like-for-like replacement of it, given that there would be a group stage and then a knockout phase. Now, what wasn't discussed within the document was whether or not the teams participating in the European Super League would strictly compete within the Super League, or if they would compete in it in addition to their domestic football, as noted by Der Spiegel. Whatever the situation is, there's allegedly some shady stuff going on concerning the big clubs across Europe, in which they're seemingly trying to ensure that all of the power and money in European football lays within their hands. And that's about it on this topic. A lot of the teams declined to comment, but given that the apparent binding term sheet called for the signing of the documents this month, perhaps we will hear something? Then again, just because the agreement is signed doesn't mean that they need to announce anything.
I'll actually put myself on pause there because while I was editing this video, Bayern actually did release a statement regarding this article by Der Spiegel. It covered a lot, but most importantly, they said, quote, FC Bayern is unaware of recent plans for a so-called Super League, also reported by Der Spiegel, nor has FC Bayern taken part in negotiations relating to such plans. FC Bayern is also unaware of why it is listed in a document quoted in this context by Der Spiegel, end quote. Okay, back to on-camera Adrian to bring it home.
Regardless, if they do announce something or if there's more leaks, then I'll be sure to do a video on it for you guys. So if you want to make sure that you're up to date on the situation, then consider subscribing if you want, or just check back later. Thanks for watching. I'm Adrian. Long live the Champions League. See you later.